This is going to be part one of your bubble map review for the Early Republic unit. We're going to start by talking about George Washington, things that we know about him. He is our first president, of course. Okay. He's our first president. He was elected unanimously. And remember, unanimously means that every single person that could vote did vote for him. Elected unanimously. His terms of office were 1789 through 1797. Okay, and he served 2 terms. Okay, and that was actually one of his precedents that he set was stepping down after 2 terms. And remember, we talked about King George was very impressed by Washington to give up power like that. Some other precedents that we have for Washington, other things that he started. I remember precedent means tradition. Okay, other traditions that he started. Well, we're going to call him Mr. President. Call him Mr. President. Okay. Some other precedents. Let's see. We want to use force to enforce laws. Okay. Another precedent is an inauguration address. We also call that an inaugural address. Okay. Another precedent is to have a cabinet. Okay, remember that a cabinet advises the president. 2 major players on his cabinet were Hamilton and Jefferson. Okay, and remember, these 2 guys started the political parties. Okay, now speaking of political parties, on the back of your notes here, we have the first political parties, Hamilton and Jefferson here. Hamilton started the Federalist Party, and Jefferson started the Democratic Republican. Federalist and Democratic Republican. Okay. Now, just a couple notes about these 2 first political parties. Let's see. The Democratic Republicans wanted a strict interpretation of the Constitution. Okay, a strict interpretation of the Constitution. That means whatever the Constitution says, that's what we have to follow. The Federalists wanted a loose interpretation. Of the Constitution, and I'm abbreviating Constitution, C-O-N-S-T, like that. Okay. A loose interpretation. So, yeah, the Constitution may say this, but we can take that to mean something else. We use the necessary and proper clause, and it's an elastic power catch-all that we can kind of make it move and stretch to fit whatever we need. Another thing of the Democratic Republicans is they were for state banks. Okay? And Hamilton was for a national bank. Okay? National bank. Anytime you hear Hamilton or the Federalists, you need to think of national banks. That's a very important kind of clue. If you see a question on the test or in the STAR test about a national bank, it probably has something to do with Hamilton. That is a very likely situation. Let's see, who's supposed to run the government under these two parties? What type of person, I guess? The Democratic Republicans said the government is accessible to all people. Okay? All levels of wealth, all levels of education are the types of people that should be in our government. The Federalists thought something very different. They said that the government should be run by the educated, wealthy elite. Okay, so these two political parties are very, very different. Okay, almost complete opposites. If you remember during our, I think we had a gallery walk between Jefferson and Hamilton, and I told you whatever one of them thought, the other one would think the complete opposite. And a lot of times they would do that just to kind of make the other one mad. So let's get back to our Washington notes here. We talked about his cabinet and the political parties. Let's talk about this whiskey tax over here. If you remember what that was a tax on whiskey makers. There was debt from the American Revolution that Washington had incurred, which means, gotten, debt that was just kind of put on him for being the first president, debt from the American Revolution. And so he wanted to tax the whiskey makers to help pay off some of that debt. Well, the whiskey makers get upset and angry. Upset and angry, and they want to start a rebellion, and we call that the Whiskey Rebellion. The Whiskey Rebellion. And this is where using force to enforce laws comes in, because Washington puts down the rebellion. And if you remember how we said he puts down the rebellion, it's like a bulldozer killing an ant. Okay? A bulldozer killing an ant. So using force to enforce laws was a big deal. And another precedent that he had was a farewell address. And in the farewell address, he talks about two major ideas. The first one is that political parties are evil. He says they are the detriment of society. He also says that we need to stay neutral in foreign affairs. Stay neutral in foreign affairs. Unfortunately, these two ideas were ignored. The warnings, oh boy, INGS, the warnings were ignored. Okay, those warnings were ignored. Okay.